how does Islam look at fame? And is it allowed to seek fame? And should you seek fame? Mohammed, Sheikh Mohammed.
As far as seeking fame, are you allowed Islamically to seek fame? Allahu A'lam, to my very little understanding, definitely no. A believer is someone who is of sincerity. A believer is someone who, when he does things, he does it for the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. When you look at the lives of the Sahaba, when you look at the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when you look at the Salaf that came after them, you never find amongst any one of these people that were hungry for fame and people that went out in search of fame. So really, in short, without dragging it on, seeking fame is an un-Islamic quality. And those people who seek fame through deen, in most cases, Allah ends up destroying them through the deen as well.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Sheikh Ali, how can you purify your intentions so you only do things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rather than the people?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah. As it was said by the brother, Jazakallah khairan, I have to ask a question: why have I been created? This is the question. And for you to get an answer to this question, answers also the rest of the other questions related to the fame. I have been created to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Ibn Mas'ud, when he explained his interpretation this Quranic verse, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, he said, إِلَّا لِيُوَحِّدُونَ. And we know that a part of the Tawheed is ikhlas, genuineness. That the aim or the work that I'm doing, the deeds that I'm coming up with, should be aimed at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing more. And the Prophet ﷺ told us when he talked about the ikhlas, he said, إِذَا كَانَ فِي السَّاقَةِ كَانَ فِي السَّاقَةِ. The Muslim soldier, when he's fighting for the sake of Allah, in any place where he's placed, it doesn't concern him. Whether he's the leader, whether he's the back, whether it's the rear, whether it's the left, whether on the side, on which wing he fights for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even those in the past did not like to show off their deeds to the others. They used to hide it. That's why some of them, when it comes in the night, late in the night, the bewitching hour, whenever it snores, they sleep in their houses and they just escape away from their families and go to a locked, dark room where they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all what you have to look for is something which takes you directly and close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anything of the greediness that we find now for the fame, this greediness that we find for that kind of a status is what has really doomed the nations. And this is what could have said about it. Jazakumullahu khairan.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Sheikh Mohammed.
Yeah.
You spoke a lot about, in your lecture, in terms of people posting things on Facebook, etc. Let's say you actually post something on Facebook and your heart finds happiness when people click like. And we're not talking about haram things. Let's say you post something good, a nasiha, something, a Quran, verse of the Quran, or anything good. And people, they click like on this. And your heart finds happiness. You actually like that people appreciate what you're doing. How can you balance that and make sure that your intention is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not for the likes?
Wallahi, it's very, very, very difficult. This is what I personally believe. I believe it's very difficult to throw yourself into an oven and not get burnt. You know, this is why I personally believe, and again I'm saying I personally believe, you know, throwing yourself into this environment of Facebook and, you know, wallahi, the best of people have fallen into the traps of likes and how many dislikes I got. And so that's why I personally avoid it altogether. Right? Personally, wallahi, I avoid it altogether. It is very, very difficult. You know, wallahi, we do what we do for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. And I'm not saying this as a, you know, I fell into this. I remember the first few times people started posting videos of mine on YouTube. So yeah, in the beginning it was mad. Wow. Oh, did you see this video and did you see that video? And your heart dances. I won't sit here and act like a hypocrite and say, oh no, you know what, I don't care. No, it's nice. And then when people tell me, oh, your videos have reached here and your videos have reached there, you feel so good. But then there comes a time where you start seeing dislikes. And then comes a time when you start seeing comments that are against you, or comments attacking you, or comments saying that. So then this starts to affect you. So wallahi, you know what? I sat down once with my Sheikh and I explained it to him, and he gave me a formula. Wallahi, and since that day I knew exactly where I was. He says to me, ikhlas, when it comes to sincerity, to know, so if you want to measure yourself, how do I measure myself and I know that I have genuine sincerity? He says, if you want to measure and know if you have sincerity, he says, true sincerity is when praise and criticism become equal in your eyes. When praise and criticism become equal in your eyes, this is a sign of someone who has sincerity. Because if I truly did what I did for the pleasure of Allah, then whether you like it or you don't, it was for Allah anyway. I did it for Allah anyway. If you liked it, well, alhamdulillah, this is a gift from Allah. And if you didn't like it, I still get full ajr with Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is sometimes Allah sends you these things as a tarbiyah to keep you in line. So, you know, I believe anyway, very few can really master being sincere and liking likes on Facebook. So if you can, protect yourself from it and don't fall into that. Because many people started off sincere and now it's a game of likes and numbers and how many followers, and this will end up destroying your efforts.
Jazakallah khair. In terms of the same question, Sheikh Haitham, if you would like to elaborate more on that. Okay, let's say one solution is you stay away from Facebook, but at the same time if you leave that platform, you are missing out on so many thousands and thousands of people who you can reach out to with your da'wah. So isn't there a way that you can balance it as well? That how can you reach a level, as Sheikh Mohammed mentioned, that you don't care if people like it or you don't care if people dislike it, because you're only doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can you kill that thing inside you that says that is pleased when you see the people liking it?
Okay, there are a number of things that to be said. First of all, when you become on Facebook or on social media, just ask yourself, what is your motivation? This is one. The second thing, what do you post? What do you post? People like you or like what you post? And what you post is Islamic or is not Islamic? And do you really add value to the Islamic da'wah, or you just want to use Islamic da'wah to boast over yourself? Okay, this is a third one. Now, the fourth point, let us imagine that you are truly benefiting people. This is true benefit for people, and what you post there is benefiting people. That is genuine. You need to do a number of things. First of all, don't become jealous when someone else is benefiting people as well. Don't try to destroy others who are trying to benefit people as well. Okay? Then you need to take some other measures. My dear brothers and sisters, I always ask you, don't be by yourself. You have to be with a group of brothers, and you have to be with a group of brothers who are senior, or sisters who are senior to you, in order to help you to maintain your ikhlas. Okay? The other thing is, my dear brothers and sisters, the biggest problem I have seen with many du'at who became famous and big celebrities through this, is that they always talk about da'wah, da'wah, da'wah. When you come to their ibadah between them and Allah, the secret ibadah, as the mashayikh said, between them and Allah, you will find it is very difficult to imagine that this person is doing all of these things because of ikhlas, and his recitation of the Quran is very low, is very minimum. When it comes, wallahi, I've been with many du'at who are big celebrities, When it comes to basic sunan, pray 2 rak'ah before Fajr, pray 4 rak'ah before Dhuhr, pray 2 rak'ah after Dhuhr, pray 2 rak'ah after Maghrib, pray 2 rak'ah after Isha. They are not so keen to do them. When it comes to Salat al-Jama'ah, they miss Salat al-Jama'ah. Yes? When it comes to fasting Mondays, Thursdays, you rarely see them fasting Mondays and Thursdays. When it comes to Qiyam al-Layl, we have seen them just praying Isha, and they are praying 1 rak'ah witr just to finish the witr, and that's it. And then are you telling me that those people who become big celebrities and their connection with Allah through those ibadat is so weak, and they are doing this sincerely for Allah Jalla wa'ala? We don't want to get into their intention, but in order to balance the fame, make sure, brothers and sisters, as many scholars said, Ibn Rajab have mentioned this, Ibn al-Qayyim has mentioned this, etc. Make sure that you have secret ibadat between you and Allah, and no one knows about those ibadat except Allah Jalla wa'ala. And the last thing is, always check yourself. Always check yourself. Am I really doing these things for the sake of Allah Jalla wa'ala, or am I doing them for fame? Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. We will round out by the last answer with Sheikh Ali, who would like to elaborate more on this topic.
Bismillah. I think the Prophet ﷺ told us a hadith which is really hadith which needs to be pointed at. The Prophet ﷺ said, on the day of judgment, there are people who are going to be brought forward to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of them was a alim, was a scholar in this world. And he's going to be asked a question. He said, "Oh Allah, I studied all these things for your sake." And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to him, "No, you didn't study for my sake. You studied all these things in order to be said to you that you are a great scholar. And people said about you that. So go to the hellfire." Another one will come who was a great Quran reciter. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask him, he says, "Oh Allah, when I was in the world, I recited Quran for your sake." And Allah says, "No, you're lying. You recited in order people say about you that a great reciter. They said about you, then he's going to be dragged down on his face, directed to the hellfire." And another one will come. "Oh Allah, I paid all this money for your sake." And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "You paid all that for the sake of you, for the sake that you're going to be said that you were a generous guy." Then people said about you that. So now we don't need anything of you. Go to the hellfire. And another one comes, he says, "Oh Allah, I fought for your sake. I fought against your enemy for your sake. I fought in your cause for your sake." And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to him, "You fought in order people will think that you're a great brave." And they said about you, "Go to the hellfire." This hadith is a very frightening hadith, which tells us that any kind of a deed that we need to do should be aimed at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a narration from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam which is graded as sahih. "Man labasa libas al-shuhra albasahu Allahu libas al-madallati yawm al-qiyamah." He who wears the clothes of fame, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will let him wear on the doomsday a cloth of humility. And this is what it is. That's why Al-Imam al-Dhahabi mentioned in his book something that was related from Shahr al-Hawshib. Shahr al-Hawshib, in this case, we can consider him to be not da'if. He says that if somebody uses a transportation that attracts the eyes of the people, which is very fascinating to some of the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would turn away from him. This kind of athar, which has been mentioned by Imam al-Dhahabi fi Sir A'lam al-Nubala, does have its meaning really. So all those narrations tell us to be far from this. In general, I would like to say to you that there are certain guidelines which can keep us steadfast in our religion, can keep us. The matter has something to do with the heart. And the heart can instantly change. It doesn't stop. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to say, Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulubi, thabbit qalbi ala dini. Oh Allah, it's you who change the heart. So Allah, make my heart very strong and very firm. So make the dua first. Second thing is that we have to read the Quran. In the Quran we find thousands of verses which teaches us how to remain steadfast and firm in the face of fitna, in the face of trials, in the face of everything. That's what we find in the Quran. رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذَا هَدَيْتَنَا. Oh Allah, do not misguide us after you have shown us the light of the guidance. This is what we have to do. The second thing is that we have to refer to the stories of the prophets. Imagine when you read about Moses, imagine when you read about Yusuf alayhi salam, when you read about other prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَذَلِكَ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. We inform you and relate to you the stories of the prophets, the messengers, in order we may strengthen your heart. And this is a Quranic verse. We also have to refer to the religious scholars to get their advice, pieces of advice. Ibn Qayyim says, whenever there is a problem, we used to run to our Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah and we used to sit with him. There is a war rising, there's a problem rising, so we used to sit with him and he used to counsel us, and that could help us out of the problem that we're in. The other way out is remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says in the Holy Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا لَقِيتُمْ فِئَةً فَاثْبُتُوا وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. When you are in the battlefield and you are facing your enemy, mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By mentioning Allah is a time when you gain tranquility in your heart. So all those means are the means by which we can be able to remain steadfast and firm in the face of the fitna and the temptation that we face. By doing this, inshallah, we can be out of this. Wa jazakumullahu khairan.